Hello, welcome back. We're now going to look at some of these features that we're going to add one at a time. To start today's class, you need to have finished the roughened plate from the previous class. To do the roughened plate, you need to have finished the box from the class before that. So if you don't have a box or a roughened plate from the previous two classes, you should go back and watch those videos. There's no point in watching this. So I'm assuming that you already have completed a roughened plate. What I'd like to do first is turn this roughened plate a little bit into a city by adding streets. And what we mean by adding a street is adding a spot where the height of the building is 0. So I want to have the buildings, which used to be kind of like the roughness of your plate, these individual boxes that are going to represent the buildings now need to have a height that's 0 at a regular interval. So what we want to do is make the height, which is maybe this is the height of each box, this input there for your make box function. I want to set that height to 0. So normally I want to make it a random number. So maybe we make height equal to some random amount. And you did that last time. Okay? But what I want to do is set the height to 0 some of the time. So maybe for every 5th row and every 5th east-west row and every 5th north-south row in the city, I want to make the height a 0. So the way we can do that is we can say if the value of z, when we get the remainder when dividing by 5, if that remainder is a 0, that's only going to happen every 5th value of z. So when z is a 1, the remainder when I divide by 5 is not 0. But when z is a 5, the remainder when I divide by 5 is 0. And when z is a 10, the remainder when I divide by 5 is 0. So if the remainder when I divide by 5 is 0 for where I am on the z-axis, or the remainder when I divide by 5 for my x value is 0. So if either of those is 0, then I want to make the height of my building as a street. And if it's going to be a street, I want the height to be 0. So I don't want to have a building there. Okay? On this video, I'm going to show you one other thing. Let's make it so that each building doesn't have to be exactly 1 by 1 wide. So suppose I want each building to be 10 by 10. So that means every building is 10 wide and 10 deep and some other amount tall. Then if I'm going to do an array of 30 buildings each direction with this x and z, each step is now 10 wide. So this would then be 30 times 10. This would be 30 times 10. So I'm actually going to make it 300. And each time I take a step, I'll take a step of 10 instead of taking a step of 1. So by doing this, I've made all the blocks in chunks of 10. So I've stepped up my x and z values in chunks of 10. And in order to do 30 steps, I had to make it each step, I didn't want to stop after 30. That would only be 3 steps. I want to stop after 30 steps, so I would multiply those numbers by 10 as well. All right, so go ahead and give that a try and see if your city now has city blocks.